Vladimir Rodolfovich, welcome back again to the second part of our never-ending philosophical conversation. I appreciate your time, and well, we covered a lot of stuff, but there are still some questions left I have to ask the most famous and infamous propagandist of Russia. First of all, how many hours a day you sleep?
From 4 to 5, if I have a chance, but I found my own little way to catch up with the sleep that is needed in the vehicle.
We're recording this session now after you had a busy work day. In the morning, your programs, then we met, then you had your evening shows. You do it every day, hours and hours. What drives you? What is your ultimate goal?
Well, first of all, I love it. I enjoy it tremendously.
What exactly do you enjoy?
I enjoy talking to people. I love people. I'm extremely interested in people. Well, I'm fascinated with people, and I think that politics is probably the last Shakespeare-style, emotions that do exist in this world. Only politics. Everything else is nothing. It's so tragic. It's so intense. But it's incredibly fascinating.
Do you actually like human beings? Because after the first...
I love them.
Except when they're European.
No, come on, don't be... it's such an ugly stereotype of yours. And that's always been, because what lays deeply underneath it is, well, you're Russians, you're not like normal human beings, you hate whatever's there, you're just pure evil, and wherever you can, you do. Not because of any reasons, you're irrational evil. Come on, guys. We do love humanity. Basically, humanity, in a way, should be grateful to Russia for the most human-loving Russian literature. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Chekhov, Pushkin, who is extremely important for Russian character, but not that well known outside of Russia. We love people. That's what we're all about. But our love is completely different from your definition of love. Our love is not egoistic, it's not selfish. It's much more than just admiration. It's much more than just desire, temptation, sex. It's much more than that. That's why if we're friends, we're friends. We'll give you everything. But if we're enemies, we'll still keep loving you. We won't torture you. We won't humiliate you. That's not who we are. But in your perspective, we're all ugly Russian Cossacks. Shik, 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 kill them all. Ugly. And not true. Even when we conquered Paris, back in 1814, we paid in every single restaurant that we visited. We paid. Isn't it weird? We paid our bills.
I had to think about something you said in our first conversation.
That's good.
Yeah, sure. No, I was thinking constantly about it. Your take on the nuclear escalation. I mean, we have to take that seriously. And I was just thinking, isn't that the ultimate absurdity? I mean, what should it lead to? If Russia uses nuclear weapons, this would be a way to civilizational suicide, also of Russia.
Exactly.
So why? I mean, it's totally out of the question. Do you really think that this is a realistic option of your government?
Of course.
Why?
Well, you're Swiss,
They're
right?
suicidal?
No way. You're Swiss, correct? So probably it should be good not only at chocolate, watches and cheese, but probably should be
I love your differentiated picture of Swiss and Europeans. It's so precise. It's so no cliches whatsoever. But please continue.
Well, you know, that's Italian cliche of Swiss guys. So that's
I once defined.
That's from Lombardia. That cliche came from Lombardia.
By the way, I defined Russians once as melancholic Italians.
Well, funny but not true, but that's okay.
Okay. No, we were with nuclear escalation. Suicide of Russia.
It's not suicide of Russia. First of all, it's extremely pragmatic. There are different ways of using nuclear bombs. And there are different types of nuclear bombs. If we go with tactical nuclear bombs, that will only lead to the fact that Europe is going to suffer severely. It won't lead to this elimination of Europe as such. But that will be a sign that we can use it. First of all, let me remind you that tactical weapon warheads were developed by Americans for the purpose of stopping Russian, this time Soviet tanks, as they expected to come from Eastern Germany deep into Europe. And only then we replied. What will happen? Europe doesn't have enough nuclear power to fight us. Neither France, no UK. They don't have enough, neither missiles, aircrafts, submarines that can do the job. We have times more tactical nuclear weapons. So you'll be expecting America to fight for you. Are you sure that Americans would die for the benefit of Europe? You didn't want to support them even in Iran. Are you sure that for your stupidity, Americans would be willing to pay the price? Trump told you, the war in Ukraine is not ours, it's yours. It's your fault. It's your responsibility. They don't want to participate. So if something happens, it's on your plate. But then you expect us, Russia shouldn't be suicidal. So we will kill Russia and Russians will not retaliate. But of course we won't retaliate. Of course, we will just go and die for the sake of white people, yeah? Yet another one, Kipling style. Bullshit. Yeah, the burden of the white man. Yummy. So there are 500 million Europeans that will go and rape Mother Russia, will take all the treasures, will demolish it, and will say, but you Russians, you shouldn't destroy us with your nuclear power. Come on, guys. We're not suicidal. We are just extremely pragmatic. If you think that you can come into our country with your weapon, with your people, and think that we're going to fight you the same way we're fighting Ukrainians, you must be nuts. No way. We'll destroy your military capabilities, your military installation, with whatever force we can. If you will not understand after we use tactical nukes, then we'll get back to much more powerful solutions.
But theatricals aside, is that really a responsible position to take, because you don't know the ultimate risks?
We do know ultimate risk. We calculate.
And you risk, you risk the destruction of Russia. I mean, you speculate that the Americans will not interfere.
We know that they will not. We know exactly that they will.
Where do you know that from?
Because they understand that in case they will have to fight for Europe, they will be under imminent threat of being completely destroyed by Russia. Because in our doctrine, as soon as they start the missiles toward us, we immediately launch whatever we have against them. And we are times more powerful in terms of strategic nuclear capabilities than any other country on this planet.
Okay, how?
What's the purpose of investing such enormous amount of money into something that you are not planning to use? You have to be pretty much sure you will not survive this war. You will never ever be able to win in this war. If you start this war, you're gonna lose.
It's very interesting, your conversational style. You look me deep in the eyes and you say, you are going to die, as if I was your opponent. If I was your enemy, I forgot to tell you. I'm just the Swiss guy asking a few questions.
Gonna die, man. We are all mortal. Wake up.
Don't.
People do die.
Do not underestimate the Swiss. But is that actually your lifestyle? Are you always in combat? Do you always need the confrontation, the argument, where you have to win, of course, where you have to prevail, never sleeping, always doing research, working on your rhetorical skills? Is that your ultimate egotistical, narcissistic goal, to be number one, to be surpass Donald Trump as the ultimate individual?
And there should be somewhere my little me with whom I'm going to the mirror.
What are you compensating?
Just rehearse.
What are you compensating for, Vladimir?
I have to say that there should be two compensations, right? You know, I have to be extremely short with small dick. Neither first, neither second one is true.
So there must be another trauma. I thought probably you had some bad experience in the United States.
Oh, I love the United States. I had great experience in the United States.
Okay.
I met two presidents. I'm an honorary citizen of the state of Alabama. I've been extremely successful in states. I have zero problem in states. I haven't won court decisions in states. I love Europe. That's your funny little ironical precision. That's what happened with you. Because that's the problem with a lot of people coming from Europe. Who told you that you have even zero analytic capacity to analyze Russians? Long time ago, there was little funny guy, Sigmund Freud, who suddenly decided that he's not just a great specialist in optics and in eye doctor, but probably he can go into psychoanalyst. And there's no one, even single case where he actually cured anyone. And after he worked with a couple of Russian clients, actually all of them were Jews by nationality as well as I'm, he came up with this great idea of ambivalent Russian soul. That's so cute. Usually when there's something you cannot understand, you find funny terms to describe it in the way that no one else would understand it as well. There's nothing to compensate. Absolutely. I'm not fighting.
You're not fighting.
Absolutely. That's the funniest way.
This is the charmer's mode we are now in.
I'm not fighting. I'm not even eager to fight. We're all pursuing the truth. Unfortunately, we're in the stage when we feel, as I told you before, betrayed. We feel that suddenly you guys decided to forget history. You have zero respect to our history. You have zero respect to our...
Who is you when you're saying you?
Not Europeans as such. Every time when I'm speaking with you, I'm speaking through you to the European leaders. If you want to discuss the compensation of little egos, look at all those Baltic states. Look at the story of Kaya Kallas. She was born in a very highly ranked Soviet family. She came from the top-notch Soviet officials. So she betrayed her past. She's not willing to discuss it. Look at Zelensky. He's the guy who came up from very ordinary Jewish family, Soviet Jewish family. And he betrayed his Jewish roots. Because now he's worshipping the worst enemies of Jewish people. Nazi criminals. Look at most part of European political leaders. They either with drugs, child-free. They all have problems. They are the one to compensate. I have nothing to compensate. I love my job. My people love me. Some of them hate me. That's normal. I have a great family. My mom is alive, my dad is alive, and they are proud of me.
Before we go into a historical analysis of the term Nazi, I have to ask you another thing, which occupied me constantly after the first part. You were saying, you, speaking through me, looking through me to this ensemble of European leaders, you said, you Europeans, you have no values, you have no culture, you have betrayed your tradition, you have betrayed your beliefs.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
everything. I learned it by heart. So let me then, Vladimir Rodolfovich, ask you one question.
Sure.
If that is so, why do rich people, well-off people in Russia, all of them, most of them, a lot of them, have houses in Europe?
Used to have.
Yeah, but because of the absurdity of the sanctions,
yes,
some
the
of
reason
them,
is quite easy.
But I mean,
nature, Mother Nature.
But that means that what you're saying now is understandable from your position. But of course, it's historically inaccurate because, like 7 years ago, you would have told me a different thing.
No, I won't tell you the different thing.
You must be fascinated by the European...
You don't listen to me carefully, right?
Okay.
Unfortunately. You betrayed your values.
In the last, 3 years?
30. Probably 25 to 30 years.
Come on, but you traveled to Europe the last 10, 15 years.
Exactly, and I will.
And Italy? You think Italy betrayed its values?
Italy is finally Catholic state. At least some religious roots are there.
But Giorgia Meloni...
Giorgia Meloni, vergogna della razza umana. Giorgia Meloni.
But, okay, do you think it's an effective communication style to insult everybody all the time?
Why you consider
Is that the expression of your love to humanity?
Why do you consider it's an insult? She thought it's a great way to communicate because she responded to me. When I was criticizing the Italian government for what they did never Italian people, no one ever paid attention. But when I started expressing my feelings toward Giorgia Meloni, nazista vero, fascista vero, and that's not my words, that's her words. Back when she was 18 and she made an interview with French TV station. And when I used this great word, puta, all Italians decided that it's a rude word and that it's going to puttana. But puta doesn't exist in Italian language, but in Russian language there's a great word, putanitsa.
Yeah.
That means a person that misses everything, mixes everything.
Yeah, okay.
You see, so that was not rude, but Italians decided that it must be rude. But, and I'm just a journalist, but when Italian ministers, when Italian president calling our President Putin worse than an animal, worse than Hitler, using awful words, no one is trying to say, oh, how could they?
But do you think, honestly...
Yes, it's an effective way of communication.
It's an effective way of communication.
Very.
Honestly, and you think this is... I mean, what does it lead to if everybody insults everybody?
Guys, why don't you then wake up? You started insulting us from 2014. Open your papers every single day. There's bullshit, insult, and lies. That's what you do all the time. In all your misfortunes, it's Russians' fault. If someone died from heart attack, the Russian poison. If someone is killed, oh, those Russians. If you find your wife with a guy, oh, that's Russian guy. If there is a guy who's, oh, that's Russian bitch. That's Putin girl that made it. You have fucked up, basically fucked up brains. Just admit it.
Well,
and by the way, it's not our fault that you were the first one on the shore sides of beautiful seas. So that's why I love Lago di Como. But it has been created by God, not by Italians. And I paid for everything. And Europeans robbed me with no reason. You think that I should respect them? They don't respect their own values. They put sanctions against me for blaming Ukrainian Nazis. Isn't it for the first time that anti-fascist Jew has been robbed by Europeans? Well, that's quite normal for European history. And when they're saying, let's get into the term of Nazis, don't play with me those fucking games.
okay,
Just don't even start.
okay.
Trust me, 27 million been killed. And when I see a person with Nazi tattoo, and when I hear this Nazi Slava Ukraine, that was Nazi salute of Ukrainian Nazi. And when someone is trying to tell me, well, come on, Bandera and Shukevich were not that bad, yeah, fucking right. Don't tell me this bullshit.
Let's talk seriously about Nazis. In 2022, there was a memorandum of Israeli historians. I think about 300 signed it. And they said Russia's use of the words genocide and Nazi in relation to what happened and what happens in Ukraine is a distortion of history, is a misuse of the Shoah, of the Holocaust.
To tell us that? There were 6 million Jews killed, and there were 27 million Soviet people. Is their blood is more sacred than ours? Out of the 6 million Jews that have been killed, how many of them were of Soviet citizenship? Who saved Jews of this world? Soviet soldier. How dare those people tell us what is right or wrong? Do they have the right? Are they almighty? They are saying that Melnik, they're saying that Bandera and Shukevich, they are saying that they're Nazis. They remember what Babi Yar is about. And when they were coming into Kiev, and they decided to visit Babi Yar, and they had to pass through the streets named by the killers of my people, what do they know about our suffering? Yes, 6 million of us been killed. I am Jewish, but I am Soviet Jew. Israel exists thanks to Soviet soldiers and to Stalin. And that's why the victory of Soviet people is a religious holiday in Israel. But when someone is trying to tell me of what Russia does and what is right and what is wrong, let them come with me to Kursk. And when they see now kneeling Zelensky for the rebuttal of Melnik, they issued a statement, Jews, right, in Israel. Oh, it's so bad, it shouldn't be right. That's not, we feel sorry that it's done by Zelensky. Genocide. Jews do not have any priority on deciding what is genocide and what is not. Yes, we suffered from genocide as Jews. Irish people, have they suffered from the genocide by English in the 19th century? People of India, have they suffered from genocide? people of Armenia? Haven't they suffered from the genocide of Ottoman Empire? And when I asked the ambassador of Israel into Russia a long time ago, why don't you admit genocide of Armenians in Ottoman Empire? He told me, well, politically it's not right. Politically it's not right. But when German counselor is stating that, it's hilarious to hear about genocide of Russian in Donbass. When fucking German politician opened his dirty mouth to say that it is funny, Russian and genocide in one sentence, what kind of response do you think he will get from us?
Why do you raise your voice? Is that an expression of a strong argument, or do you want to intimidate the guy who asks the question?
I'm just trying to knock through your emotions of superiority and to get you to the realistic scale of the tragedy that we're all facing right now. And if you think that someone can tell us, great Russian people, what is right and what is wrong, and when you think that Israel nowadays have the right to judge whether it is possible to use the word Nazi or not, go and talk to the Palestine people in Gaza. Ask them the same question. And ask Europeans why there are no sanctions against Israel and United States.
Yeah, but let's go back to the question of Ukraine.
Okay.
Let's go back to the question of Ukraine. Ukraine, the history. You are much more an expert than I suspect, but there is one thing is clear. There were many Ukrainians, people who lived in Ukraine, was a Soviet republic at the time, were fighting in the Red Army. The Ukraine was suffering enormously under Hitler. They lost a lot of people.
Exactly.
And then what you're totally pushing aside is the whole.
You really don't understand, right?
Let me say something. You know the book, you know the text by Josef Roth about Ukraine in 1922, when Lenin took over Moscow. And at the beginning, the Ukrainians were very positive about the communists and thinking they had now finally a friend in Moscow, let them express their culture, etc. Then came Stalin. What did Stalin do? I mean, he killed millions of Ukrainians. And of course, in that historical context, you have... I'm sorry.
Wait, he killed them how?
He starved them. He starved them to death.
Who told you this bullshit?
Who told you this bullshit? This is historical fact.
What historical fact?
That's historical fact.
It's not historical fact.
Come on.
Do you know what were the
millions died, Vladimir. Millions died. Yeah, in Ukraine.
And what about Povолжье and Kazakhstan? When every time I hear this bullshit about absolute bullshit.
I beg your pardon.
No, you don't have to beg my pardon. You have to know the history. Okay. Unfortunately, for many years, we had starvation in different parts of Russia because of a lot of different
reasons. You had the systematic killings of kulaks. You had the show trials here in Moscow, and you were telling me, Stalin was a...
That's absolutely a lie. First of all...
A lie?
Of course it's a lie. First of all, the first concentration camps were invented by British Empire.
In the Boer War,
Then the Austro-Hungarian Empire during the First World War.
You're evading the question.
No, I'm going to. Invented 2 prison camps, especially for Russians and Russians. The first actually awful facts of dying from starvation happened before the awful and the most tragic pages of our history. But the truth is that yes, that's the fact, that a lot of people died, not only in Ukraine, but also in Povолжье, that was Russia, also in the parts of Kazakhstan. That was awful, absolutely terrible disaster. And when you're talking about genocide of Ukrainians, you have to remember 2 facts. First of all, it has never been against certain nationality. At this time, heads of Soviet Ukrainian Republic were Ukrainians by nationality. And people who were dying, and that was absolutely tragedy, all over Russia, all over Ukraine and other parts, they were not dying on the base of national reasons.
Oh, they were dying. They were dying because on the altar of collectivism and a forced
who told you about this collectivism?
Richard Pipes.
Richard Pipes had no fucking idea.
Robert Conquest.
Can you just tell me even one guy who witnessed this and who is based on the document?
You didn't witness it too. I mean, you have been there.
But my family did, because my family came from Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather actually was one of those Jews that survived this part. He was from Zolotonoshche. And my grandfather and my grandmother survived through this period and went before the World War to Kharkiv to get their education in the institute, aviation institute, Kharkivsky Aviation Institute. I know this history pretty well because it's part of my family history. And that was tragic. At the same time, there were people dying in the United States because of the Great Hunger. And at this time, and that's true.
Yeah, but Vladimir.
And when you're telling about Gulag, what Gulag has to deal with it? Where is Gulag there? What it has to do with Gulag?
The Bolshevik system was a totalitarian system which killed millions. And my point was the following.
And it's absolute.
And you have to.
How many?
Millions.
Many? How many?
Read the Black Book of Communism.
Don't give me this bullshit. Tell me numbers.
Give me this bullshit.
Because, well, let's calculate.
All the facts that you don't like is bullshit.
No, easy. What was the population of Russia at the end of the First World War? Then came the Civil War. During Civil War, there were 10 million Russians killed. Then we have 27 million Russians killed during the Second World War. It's already 37 million Russians been killed for less than 30 years. And then you tell me how many were killed in the Gulag? If you add all those numbers, how come that every single year we have an increase of the population? Why don't you ever put mathematical brains into this historical bullshit?
Have you ever heard the name of Solzhenitsyn?
Alexander Isavich Solzhenitsyn, yet another little guy with zero education, who passed the war, who became well-known author, and who, thanks to Fadeev, managed to publish his world-famous story «Один день из жизни Ивана Denisovича», who spent some time, and then who never worked with actually enough archived documents because he never had an access to them, and then he made his fortune and his way into the literature. Well, I know exactly who the hell is here.
Show trials in Moscow, forced starvings, killing of kulaks. My point. Let me finish my point.
Killings?
Let me finish my point, please.
Let me put it this way.
You said you wanted to. You like to listen to people.
Cut this bullshit. How many people at this time were hanged by Ku Klux Klan in America? How many people were killed by? We're talking about the same period of history. How many people were killed by Nazi Germany? How many people were killed by British Empire, who at this time used chemical weapon in Afghanistan by Churchill? How many people died of starvation in India during the Second World War? 3 million people were starved to death by Churchill and British Empire. Are you blaming them and British capitalism?
Sure.
No fucking way. You never say a word. But of course there's Stalin who is bloody good.
Okay, I see you have a different image.
Talk to me with numbers. Why are you talking about Ukraine? What Ukraine? Let me remind you that Soviet Union is the greatest state that has been created by 4 entities, and one of them is Ukraine. Let me remind you that Ukrainians always been on the top-notch positions in the Soviet Union. Aren't they?
Vladimir.
Aren't they?
Okay, let me go back to my initial point. No.
Khrushchev and Brezhnev.
There was.
Who are they?
Come on.
How many people were killed by capitalism and how many people were killed by socialism? All the slavery in Africa.
We're in the
not
70,
even close.
80 million people. If you take. If you go to China, if you take all these systems.
And now let's go to Africa, please. Let's go to South America, let's go to North America, let's go even to the late years in Afghanistan, let's go to Iraq, let's go to Libya, let's go to Syria. How many people were killed? How many people, little Belgian guys killed in Africa?
Would you prefer to live in the Soviet Union than in Russia today?
Well, first of all, Soviet Union is my motherland. I love Soviet Union. I think that Soviet Union is the best that ever happened to my country. Only because of Soviet Union, I am alive. Because if not for the Soviet Union, we Jews will be all destroyed by European Nazis. Because you, without Gulag, without Stalin, without the starvation, without all the awful things, created the worst evil ever.
Yeah. But what you're...
Adolf Hitler. And you never fought him. You loved him. You adored him. You worshipped him. That's why you never fought against him strongly enough. That's why Vichy, that's why Franco, that's why Salazar, that's why all those little guys, that's why Pilsudski madly in love with Hitler, that's why little British royal family saluting Nazis.
Okay, it was Stalin and Molotov who made the contract with Hitler.
They were the last one who made this
but
contract.
still, you know, they
when
made the
other countries made it, we were the last one to make it when you're trying to betray us, when you decided to give Hitler whatever he wanted, and when, unfortunately, you decided not to let Russian troops through Poland to help Czechoslovakia.
You don't have to convince me that Russia, and this I say without irony, has made huge impact and benefits. They liberated Europe from Napoleon, they liberated it from Hitler. I don't dispute this. But what I dispute is the following. I think you're distorting Ukrainian history and the complexity.
What the fuck is Ukrainian history?
Can I please finish my question?
Of course not, because it will be funny.
It's not. Okay, let's make something clear. This is now my interview. If you interview me, you can interrupt me all the time. I don't agree. I don't disagree. But please,
definition.
Please.
You have to come up with proper definition.
Yeah, I come up
when
with a
proper. When you're calling Ukrainian history,
I come up with a proper
what do you call
definition.
Ukrainian?
A fact of history.
Of course. What do you call Ukrainian history?
After
but
these
what
starvings on the territory of Ukraine, on these territories which we consider. Can I please make my point?
Yeah, sure.
We don't use it sophistic methods.
No, it's but what do you call Ukraine? Okay, at this time, Lvov is Ukrainian
territory. Can I make my point?
Sure, but what Lvov? Ukrainian territory.
Yeah, okay. You nail me on these terms. I say, in the lands we consider today Ukraine. There were people starving. There were people starving in the 30s, and this is a reason why in Ukraine this tragic historical event of, you could call it, the European Civil War between the old conservative society and Bolshevism, communism, was of course fought out, and Germany was attacking the Soviet Union and was cheered by Ukrainians. Not because they thought they were in love with killers, but they thought they could liberate them from the oppression of the Bolsheviks.
That's funny how you have no damn idea what you're talking about. Okay, let me get back to history. First of all, most part of what you call Ukraine has never been Ukraine. Part of it used to be Austro-Hungary, like Lvov.
Yeah.
Part of it was
the western part. Galicia.
Part of it was part of Romania. Part of it was part of Hungary. Part of it was part of Poland. Part of it was part of Russian Empire that we conquered, like old Novorossiya. Odessa has been always Russian, as you know. Crimea, Kharkiv, and all those places, they were Russian-speaking with Russian mentality. Kiev has been purchased at a certain moment of time from Poland for a certain amount of money. So as an entity, Ukraine as such existed in different borders for a very short period of time. When we are talking about Bolsheviks, a lot of them were Ukrainian by nationality. Bolshevism was extremely popular in Ukraine. Bolsheviks were not people coming from other places. For most part of so-called, they were not even termed Ukrainian. Because in Russia this time, we had definition according to the religious beliefs. And people were described on other Christians, Muslims, or in Judaism, and that's how it was. Then we have Belarusians, we have Mala-Russians, we have Velika-Russians. Term Ukraine basically is in a way quite modern.
Yeah.
When people that right now you're addressing to, they're never called like Philip Orlik, who considered to be the first author of Ukrainian constitution, never ever called himself Ukrainian. Taras Shevchenko, who is considered to be father of Ukrainian poetry, he was saying that he wrote his verses on the southern version of a Russian language. The idea of modern Ukrainian has been created in Austria-Hungary. And that is extremely different from what actual history is. Through all the history of Russian Empire, people that were coming from Ukraine, as you call them, Ukrainian nationality, they were in extremely high positions. They were never ever oppressed. They were never under different terms that, should I say, Russians. They were Russian generals, they were political leaders, they had whatever they wanted.
Okay.
And during Soviet time, a lot of Ukrainians were on a very high position in Politburo. They were running Soviet Union, they were running KGB, military, and even in the worst time of this tragedy of the starvation and people killed, there were never ever the question of the nationality. At this time, Ukraine has been run by people of Jewish, Ukrainian, Russian blood.
Okay. Let me phrase my question differently. I don't want to challenge and dispute your monumental superiority.
But that's true.
In history. No. My point is the following. In what you call it Ukrainian Nazis, you say they have this cult going back in history, so I quote you. And
yeah, but that's not all Ukrainian
my point
people.
Is the following. My point is the following. My impression of this history of these territories and the people we are talking about. We had the Second World War. We had the invasion of Nazi Germany. Of course, you had collaborators. You had them also in France. You had them. You had in France, you had a resistance. In Belgium, you had collaborators in many countries, but you had also a resistance. You also had a resistance in Ukraine. It was not the fact that everybody was running with the Nazis against
Who told you that everybody was running?
But my point is the following. Isn't it so? Or is that a distortion of your position?
No.
I think
you don't understand my position completely.
No, I think that's
so
my
hard.
impression. Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you are somehow singularly, putting all the Ukrainians in this box.
You do not understand completely. You miss it all. Back in 2014, what happened in Kiev was a military coup, armed coup. And that's when the civil war started. Because Ukraine, since 1991, when they became independent, suffered from the invasion of Nazi ideas coming from Canada, where a lot of Bandera followers fled after the Second World War.
Can I just have a quick question? I'm a historian. And so what we have learned in university is that the term Nazi is actually reserved for a certain period of time, meaning the relationship to the National Socialist movement of Germany, to Hitler.
Let me put it this way.
Hitler in the historical context.
In this historical context...
it cannot be used today. Because this is a distortion of history. This is polemical...
Okay, in this word communism and followers of communist ideas should be used only during Karl Marx?
I mean, I don't call Putin a Bolshevik or the Russians
because
today are Bolsheviks. Just because you think Stalin was a good guy, I don't call you a Bolshevik.
I never said that Stalin is a good guy.
Okay.
I never ever said that. And the only thing that I'm saying that you should judge historical figures in the context of history of the time.
I agree.
When I'm using the word Nazi, it's extremely exact term. Those are the people that following ideas of National Socialism. In Ukraine, most part of people were against Nazis. There were enormous amount of people who fought in Russian army, Ukrainians. There were partisan movie. One of them was great Sidor Kavpak, who ran one of the biggest partisan entity ever. Actually, I think he was twice awarded with the Star of Hero, and he was general. And that's what happened in 2014, when Donbass, where Russian people live, they said, we don't want people from Lviv and Ivano-Frankovsk with Nazi ideas, with Bandera and Shukhevich.
But again, I mean, what I would consider legitimate is to say these are ultra-nationalists.
They're not ultra-nationalists.
In what sense do you define them as Nazis?
Easily. Shukhevich, you know who Shukhevich was?
Bandera, Shukhevich.
Yeah, but you know whom they were?
Yeah.
Were they Nazis?
Yeah, they were Nazis in their time.
They were Nazis, and that's were their ideas. They had.
And what would you say are the specific ideas that the so-called Nazis today in Ukraine have?
Absolutely the same. They're saying that.
What do you mean specifically?
That they're following Bandera and
killing all the Jews, and they have a Jewish president.
Who told you that he's Jewish?
Zelensky.
Yeah. He goes to synagogue. He kneeled in front of.
Well, the Germans killed all the Jews, whether they went to synagogues or not.
Not really. You have to study history. There were even Jews that were trying to mimic that they're not Jews. They were
but again, we were with the Nazi ideas specifically. What do you mean when you talk about Ukrainians?
They are stating that they believe and they follow ideas of OUN-UPA, Organization of Ukrainian Nationalism, that stands for OUN. They have their own manifest, and this manifest is the same manifest that has been done by their leaders back in the early 40s. Those are the people that personally in charge of one of the worst pogroms in the history of Jewish people in Lvov. Shukhevich used to be in SS division, and a lot of Ukrainians that right now consider to be heroes of Ukraine used to be members of SS Glichina. And right now, when you look at a lot of Ukrainians on the front, you will see Nazi symbols, don't you? And tattoos. So why don't you ask them? Why do they have them? Why are they using them? Maybe because you cannot kill ideas that easily. Maybe because they have ideas of superiority. That's why regularly they have those marches with torches. That's why they still shouting out Nazi salute. And of course you can think that, why do we call them Nazis? Because they are Nazis.
The word Nazi in today's usage is often used as a, polemical, propagandistic word. I mean, everybody who is my opponent is a Nazi.
No, not everyone.
And I think, it's terrible what you're describing, these guys.
That's not
I totally agree. But the question is, National Socialism, Hitler, this was about dictatorship. It was killing all the Jews. It was conquering, Eastern Lebensraum, all this stuff. It was like killing all the opposition, putting them into camps. And again, President Zelensky is of Jewish origin. Part of his family has been killed in the Holocaust. Don't you think it's cynical?
It's cynical? Betrayal. It's not fucking cynical. It's betrayal. When a person of Jewish origin allows Nazi do whatever they want, it's betrayal of Jewish people and their memory. When he's saying that Bandera and Shukhevich were heroes of Ukraine and that Melnik should be buried in Ukraine, the one who is deeply in blood of Jewish people, that's what you call cynical. Don't talk with me about it. You will never understand me because I'm a Jew.
I try to understand
No, you won't.
Sure.
How many people of yours have been killed by them? How many members of your family were destroyed by Nazis. And that's,
but I don't need to have this experience in order to understand and sympathize with your point of view.
You can never empathize. You just don't understand. And you will never understand.
Okay, then I ask another.
I can explain why.
Okay.
Because you're living in a very pure society where it's where there are no killings, where there are no mass murders. What do you know about modern day Ukraine? Have you ever heard about independent journalism there? Have you ever heard about Ales Buzina, who has been killed, and his killers were found, but they were never punished because they were Nazis? Have you ever heard about people that suddenly disappeared? Do you know how many priests are in jail right now? Have you asked whatever happened with Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine? Have you ever asked yourself what happened with the political opposition in Ukraine? Have you asked yourself why people flew out of Ukraine and it started in 2014? Have you asked yourself who killed those people in Odessa? Have you asked yourself why did they start bombarding Donbass? They just didn't want to believe that Shukhevich and Bandera are national heroes of theirs. Have you ever asked questions why Ukrainians are fighting those bastards? Why so many Ukrainians decided to fight against Zelensky? Have you asked this question yourself? Why Zelensky betrayed Russian language? Why he betrayed his grandfather? He used to come to the cemetery to kneel in front of his grave. No more. Don't call him Jew. He's Musser. He's a betrayal of our nation.
Can I ask you, what then?
And let me remind you, you wanted to ask me about why we're moving not fast enough and all the stuff about the war.
Yeah, sure. We will come to that immediately. Sorry for taking your time so long. But one final thing on this topic, because it's important, and I thank you for your arguments. Denazification, which was a goal. What does it concretely mean in that context? I mean, what does it mean? You want to put all them into a re-education camp, or?
Okay, you see, that's all started with you fucking Europeans hypocrites, when suddenly decided that Stalin and Hitler basically equal, and that Soviet Union is the same evil as Nazi Germany. And all of you little motherfuckers are just suffered because of those two tyrants that had this awful war in Europe. And you forgot about your betrayals, you forgot about how you actually grabbed all the property of Jews that were killed. There's great book.
Denazification. What does it mean concretely?
And then suddenly you decided not to see those little acts that came into the Ukrainian legal system. Denazification means a couple of laws that has to be adopted. First of all, Ukraine has to come back to its initial constitution and fundamental documents. And in their documents, they have to write down the rights of Russian language, the rights of religious communities, the ban of Nazi ideology. Basically, they have to come back to the decision of the Nuremberg trial.
Would Russia do a Nuremberg trial in Ukraine for denazification?
I'm not the one to answer this question. I have no idea.
Okay, let's go to the other thing, which I didn't ask you in the first session. You're leaving tomorrow very early, so thanks again for your time. You're leaving again to the front. You're getting up at what time? In the morning, you're flying over. What do you expect to see there?
The truth. Great Russian heroes fighting for the motherland and for Russians that are not willing to live under Ukrainian Nazis, that want to speak the mother tongue Russian language that is prohibited in Ukraine. And that Ukrainians, when they did it, Europeans never said a word. They'd want to go to the churches of their choice and not the one that Ukrainians decided to allow and others to ban. Where they want to follow the roots of their fathers, the great warriors of the Great Patriotic War, and not the Nazi supporters and admirers.
I address the extremely analytical Vladimir Solovyov now and want to ask you about the situation, the overall situation on the front, how things are going. We are reading a lot of stuff. In the Western media, they say Russia is stuck. Trump's former security advisor, H.R. McMaster, has said the tide militarily is turning against Russia. And your remarks about escalation, nuclear weapons, could be read as a sign of growing desperation that it's not going according to plan. How would you assess, honestly, the situation on the battlefield?
First of all, I think that you have zero idea what's happening there.
That's why I'm asking you.
And when you're talking about the tide is changing, do you know what the actual situation of the front line is?
I asked you.
Okay. So tell me, what's your perception? How many Russians been killed? How many Ukrainians
That's
been
what
killed?
I want to ask you.
Okay. Since the beginning of this year, and let me get you some statistics to make it easier for you, we liberated 70 villages, little towns, 70 entities have been liberated. 1,561 square kilometers in 5 months. It's not a lot. It's the territory of London or a couple of states. But we liberated them. Since 2023, all the people that are going to the front line, they're going there by their own will.
Excuse me?
Going there by their own will.
Yeah.
They volunteer.
Yeah.
We don't catch them on the streets like animals, like Ukrainians do. Our army is an army of people that are willing to fight. That's their own will. They were not enrolled. It's their own will. They all volunteered.
But they have to be compensated.
Everyone has to be compensated. That's normal.
A lot.
But you know, there is not enough money to pay if you have to die.
It's not correct when they write in the Western media that it's getting harder and harder to find recruits in spite of the bonuses they get. Is that fake news? Is that fake news?
It's not the fake news. They just have no idea what they're talking about. Because right now, there's a new wave of young people that are enlisting into so-called войска беспилотной авиации. That's a new type of military establishment that are dealing with FPV. So there are a whole bunch of young people going there. In Ukraine, it's a problem. You have to catch them on the streets like wild animals and get them there. Then in terms of casualties. At first they came up with this phrase that, oh, we're going to kill 50,000 Russians per month. They never came even close to those numbers. Because if that's going to be true, then since that has been announced by Magyar, 5 months passed, that should be at least 250,000 Russians killed and about the same amount wounded.
350, 325. Or what's the number that they say in the...
And that's stupid.
Yeah.
Because no army in the world will tolerate that.
Yeah.
And the whole Russia will be in graves. Where are they?
Where do you get your numbers from?
Well,
how do you
first
know?
of all, well, I do know. First of all, you can evaluate quite easily amount of new graves in Russia and in Ukraine. Then you can look at the even statistic so-called excess death, comparing with the average in Russia and Ukraine. Then you just start thinking. Every time I go to the front line, I ask people, what's your casualties comparing with your enemies? And usually it's on one Russian soldier, 3 to 4 Ukrainian soldiers been killed. And then there's the easiest way. We have exchange of bodies.
So,
have you ever heard about the exchange rate of how many dead Russian soldiers has been exchanged for dead Ukrainian soldiers?
Tell me.
You don't know?
No, tell me.
Do you know or you don't know?
I don't know.
And why is that? Every time we exchange...
Because I don't believe any numbers we have in our media.
Now you're talking sense.
No,
oh, you see?
I mean,
finally, Russian propaganda gets you. Cool,
come on,
my man.
Vladimir,
That's
in war, all the sides do propaganda. The Ukrainian side, the Russian side.
You see?
So you say, so what is the overall casualty number? What do you think, or the death toll that Russia had to pay so far?
Well, definitely it's not even close to the numbers that are given to the West. During every single war, as you know, it's usually it's not officially announced and they won't be the one to tell you. But let me put it this way. According to the statistic that Ukrainians are dealing with on the base of officially published mortlogs, or martyrs, how you call them, there were more than 730,000 Ukrainians being killed. Ukrainian numbers that are given is about 60,000.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get you the exchange of bodies that has been done in recent days. And I cannot find it. Too bad. But for the last time, since Istanbul, we gave to Ukraine 20,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers, and we got back less than 700 hours.
But still, in our first session, you said, on my question, are you criticizing your president? You said, I criticize him every day because you would fight more decisively or more intensely, which I have to interpret that there must be difficulties on the front lines.
No,
they're not advancing enough, or what is your what's the problem of Russia at the moment there?
The difficulty is completely different. And the difficulty is that we're fighting against them as if we're implementing police operation. We're not using all our mighty weapon. We're trying to be extremely gentle. We're trying not to destroy civilians. We're not fighting like Americans or like Israelis, where they go and demolish everything. We don't do that. We could be much more precise and much more cruel.
At the beginning,
we're trying not to kill them.
At the beginning of this,
and that's why, and that's important.
Right.
But once again, never ever Westerners will tell you that on the exchange of bodies, the ratio is absolutely awful for the Ukrainians. Usually it's one Russian body from 7 to 10 Ukrainian bodies.
Are the drones a game changer? Let me bring you an analogy. In the Middle Ages,
I know this animal.
The longbow from the British. Is it a game changer, the drones? Is it causing unexpected damage to the Russian advance?
The same as to the Ukrainians. We isolated them, we kicked them out from Kursk thanks to drones. And Rubicon is much more superior to those birds of Modia.
And you think that Russia can reach its military goals in the conventional way on the battlefield?
With Ukraine, with these.
So why then escalate with nuclear weapons?
Because of the West. Without Western help, there will be no one to deal with. We produce everything ourselves. We manufacture an enormous amount of drones. And our drones, let me put it politely, definitely not worse than the one that Ukrainians have, done by the West. And there's... How many Ukrainian soldiers have been killed by Russian drones? Just read Ukrainian publics. And they will tell you that it's awful, we cannot get this, we cannot do that. We can hit every single target in every part of Ukraine with our Gerань, with our different missiles, with different type of FPVs. Yes, it's 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers. We have them with the optical fiber. We have the same.
War fatigue on the front, you see that?
No. We are Russians. We'll live in war.
Leadership, competent, good officers?
Perfect. We have, well, the war is never the same. But a couple of military operations that were held by our generals, they will definitely make a history. They will definitely make a history. When we went all the way, you know this Operation Patok went through the pipeline? Mm-hmm. You know the story?
No.
Amazing. Okay, so when Ukrainians decided to invade Kursk, and they thought they're going to succeed, finally, with our drones, and that was done by Rubicon, we completely cut off all the supply lines, and then suddenly they found out that we are behind their lines, because our guys went through the gas pipe.
Mm-hmm. Did you expect this whole military special operation taking so long when it started? Or
no one ever did. There's not even one single war that has been predicted correctly.
Mm-hmm. But you personally, I mean, from your feelings back then and today?
My feelings, you don't want to hear my feelings.
Okay.
First of all, my feelings that West have no idea what's actually happening, because they're based only on Ukrainian bullshit. And they don't want to think, they don't want to calculate, the same as with the Stalin murders. They never added numbers, never ever. That's why they're always wrong. Do you realize that with your perception of Russian economy, we should never be able to come up with enough artillery shells, with enough drones? Do you understand how many we manufacture? Because with your perception of Russian economics, that would never happen. Maybe there's something you do not understand about Russian industrial power. Mm. Do you understand how many Russians are willing to die for the motherland? You never estimated that. Maybe because you do not understand Mother Russia. Do you understand why when we fight, we are not getting tired? Because that's the way we live in. Do you understand why we're never tired of the war? Because we're fighting for the right cause. Do you ever ask yourself this really weird question? What historical time are we living in? And the answer you won't like. We entered the era of lone war conflicts. Hmm.
What do the soldiers you talk to? I'll speed it up. But it's really interesting. What do the soldiers you meet tell you about the enemy? I mean, the Ukrainians that are fighting.
They're not the enemy.
They're also fighting for a good cause,
no,
in their view.
They never fight for
the opponents.
They never fight for the good cause. If they would fight for the good cause, they will go voluntarily to fight for. And the Ukrainians are not lining to go to the front line. They're trying to escape. How many Ukrainians fled their country? And how many Russians? Why is that? Why Ukrainians are not willing to die for the motherland? Why are they willing to go to Germany, to Poland, to UK, to the United States, of the age when they should fight? Why do you have to catch them to get them on the front line? Why are they not willing to die for the motherland and to fight for it? Because the cause is not right.
But they're still holding through, in spite of what you're saying.
No, they're not holding through. They're dying there. And they're afraid to get back because at home they will be killed. And because their families are terrorized. And when they finally, you know how many of them were killed when they were trying to surrender? And they were killed by their own people.
I mean, you agree, we both agree that this is a terrible tragedy. It should never have happened this clear.
Absolutely.
Considering all the facts, all you know now, looking back in February 2022, was the decision of President Putin to use military force to solve the problems of Ukraine and Russia, this whole mess, with an invasion? Was that a capital mistake? Was it a necessity? Was it too late? How would you assess the decision?
First of all, it was too late. That's what Putin said himself. Then we finished the war with Ukraine in a couple of weeks. In Istanbul, it was all over. And then we started fighting you guys, NATO. Well, Switzerland is not part of NATO. We started fighting NATO. We're not fighting Ukrainians. You know how we kill enemies there? We kill them Немцы, Germans. We don't call them Ukrainians. Немцы. The other word you won't like to hear. But that's the way it is. We don't hate them. We hate you. So you're the one we're fighting with, NATO, not Ukrainians. They're just victims in this war.
So, since I do not understand you, I just want to make sure that I understand this. You are saying that...
Probably nowadays my English is not good enough.
No, I was...
Maybe
you were criticizing... When you had no better arguments before, you were criticizing the use of my vocabulary, which was a bit a sign of desperation.
Yes, please do. Please fight back.
And when you
get back on your dictionary, come on.
I mean, it's never a sign of strength if you make fun of your interviewer.
Of course, that's a great
sarcasm.
way to fight.
Sarcasm.
Of course, when you're losing, you start saying, "Oh, come on, that's not an honest battle. That never works." But I'm hurt.
Why losing? I'm asking questions.
Why
I'm not in a
losing?
ring fight with you. I'm not in a ring fight. Well, okay, I see. I underestimated you, of course. I underestimated you. No, the question, what was the question actually?
Exactly, what was the question
I wanted to ask you? What was the question I wanted to ask you? Yeah. I tried to find a positive word about Europe to conclude our conversation. Is there a politician at the moment in Europe who you would consider a sensible, a rational interlocutor, a partner, a potential partner, some silver lining on the horizon?
The silver lining on the horizon for Europe is European people, not politicians. The problem of European political leaders is that they're no longer Europeans. In a way, should I say, they belong to George Soros, to Democratic Party of the United States.
That's another conspiracy theory.
Yes. To this Epstein Island, should I say?
No,
of
please.
Of course you hate this.
Come on.
Of course.
No.
Why am I using...
I mean, this is now...
Wait. Why am I using those trigger words? Quite easily. Look at the upbringing, where they all came from. They all came from, most part of them, not from the real life, not from the real people emotion, not from real experience like people before, like leaders before, like great leaders of Europe, like Chirac, like
Helmut
Berlusconi,
Kohl,
like Kohl. There were,
Gerhard Schröder.
of course, there were people of magnitude, of great personal history. Since
you respect them?
A lot. Since then, they came up this new generation of European bureaucrats. They do not look and talk like politicians. They behave themselves like little guys from the office of the big company. They're not about people. They're not about emotions. That's why immediately came up another wave of people like Signora Meloni, more of the populist, when they were trying to create this emotion, get it back. But they are not profound enough. They're not deep enough. They're not actually that well educated. They don't feel responsibility. They don't carry this responsibility of the people they have to represent. And the system of voting has been done by Americans in a way that real people leaders have zero ability to come to power. And Europe suddenly, at a certain moment of time, started losing its independent view. And I hope that Europeans one day will just wake up and they look at the roots, look at the history, and start asking themselves questions. What happened to us? What happened with our families? What happened with our beliefs, with the story as such? And when this will happen, there will be a chance that people diplomacy will start working. Of course, I've been provoking you a lot. And of course, I do realize that it's extremely un-European to hold this discussion in such an awful manner, emotional, sometimes extremely rude, sometimes extremely combatant style, the war style. But sometimes on this emotional vehicle, that's the only way to get some new ideas to this extremely polished consciousness of modern people, when everything is sort of politically correct. I just hope that Europeans will wake up and ask themselves, whatever happened with our little communities? Whatever happened with our neighbors? With our beautiful little towns? With our nice little restaurants? With little shops? With these masterpieces that have been created in all those little companies? With those family businesses? Who are those people that suddenly live in among us? Why don't they respect our culture? Why don't they speak our language? Why they're not asking what can they do for the country where they live? Why they're asking what they can take from the country where they live? And when Europeans will start to respect themselves, their history, their traditions, their beliefs, they will easily find the language of friendship with Russians. Easily.
I believe that this process you're describing, that they're waking up, that's in full motion. But let me ask you one final thing. It's really interesting to talk to you, the variety of tonalities that you have. I ask myself, I mean, you are an extremely influential opinion maker. You have an impressive body of work. You have the attention of millions every day. You're working tirelessly. And as I have researched, you're actually reading everything yourself. You don't have a team of researchers and artificial intelligence. You really are a public intellectual, one can say activist. And I ask myself, with the power you have, and I believe honestly that you want to enlighten the people, you are honest, you want to show reality, how it really is. But still there is a line, there are emotions. And in war times, there is the line between, you can say, enlightenment, patriotism, propaganda, we talked about it. But in the West, you're considered a demagogue. And everybody who stands in the public sphere knows it's possible to inflame people, to stir up emotions, especially if you have the gift of rhetoric and of intelligence, etc. Where is for you personally this line when you're standing in front of the camera where you say, Vladimir, I'm the guy who wants to put reality first, and I don't want to steer in a bad way, as we have witnessed it in the European history many times. You have mentioned it before. Germany was somehow hypnotized by these kind of guys who could speak brilliantly, who could fill the stadiums.
Crowd, yeah.
Everybody was fascinated. Some of the brightest politicians and academics went to the Berghof, to Hitler, and came back like they witnessed some guy. You are also a charismatic personality. So where is your personal line where you say, I don't want to fall into the trap of the guy who is seduced by his own power of the words? Do you have this line? Is that a question?
I'm not a political leader. I'm just a journalist. I'm not pursuing any political career.
And that means?
And I'm not willing to. I'm just talking to people that are willing to listen. I'm not forcing them. I'm not trying to build my own career. You see, when people are calling me names, that's because they're weak. That's because they cannot withstand.
You are also a great name caller, by the way.
Because they cannot withstand arguing with me. If you have a point, you're more than welcome. Talk to me. But don't give me crap. Don't insult my intelligence. When you talk to me, talk with facts, not with opinions. Then we can sit down, we can look at the numbers, we can analyze, and we can come to certain conclusions. Maybe that's from my engineering background. It's a very good question that you asked. And I gave you an answer in the first part of our interview. Now, when at night you're going to bed, there's this tiny moment when you're falling asleep and your ego is already sleeping and your consciousness is not.
What is sleeping?
And at this time, your ego.
Your ego is sleeping.
And your consciousness is not.
Yeah.
And then this time, you have very, very silent whisper of God. And you know exactly whether you're right or wrong.
And have you ever had the feeling you were wrong before
Of course.
the consciousness fell asleep?
Of course. And this, when it happens, I'm trying to make my work on my mistakes. On the February of 24th, 2022, Vladimir Solovyov, who loved Europe, America, cars, enjoyed Lago di Como and everything around it, he was a man of the world, died. And Vladimir Solovyov, who is a warrior and who is fighting for his motherland, started living in the same body.
And is the warrior longing that the man of the world will someday return?
The big question is, what kind of world will be at the time of my return?
Vladimir, thanks a lot for this conversation, for your time and
Anytime.
And health and your difficult and dangerous work.
Thank you. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.